بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه أما بعد. First and foremost, I want to make an announcement regarding an event that's going to take place inshallah this Saturday. This Saturday after the Maghrib prayer until Isha, we have an event for the youth ages 13 and up. And the event is named an appreciation dinner to honor the youth of our community, but there is also an intent to inshallah shed guidance on some very important matters that are concerning youth and matters that the youth struggle to grapple with on a daily basis. So inshallah in that event we'll be addressing Islamophobia, we'll be addressing LGBTQ issues and also skepticism. Now these three issues are concerning our youth and challenging our youth on a daily basis. And the reasons are quite apparent and clear. Because the society around them, the environment around them has an impact on them and influences the way that they think. And there's also certain pressures on them to conform to certain ideals and certain ways of thinking. And it's important that we provide clarity and guidance on these matters, because when our youth seek guidance and clarity, the one resource they have is the internet. And on the internet, they will encounter varying issues or varying statements and varying opinions on certain issues, though these matters are already discussed, already agreed upon, and already decided upon in our deen. So lifestyle expressions and choices, how a person must behave with their sexuality, so on and so forth, these are things that the deen has addressed already. They're fixed. مَعْلُوم مِنَ الدِّينِ. Right? By necessity, we know from the deen these matters are fixed. But today, youth are being challenged with regards to the definition of gender. What does it mean? Then, expression of certain lifestyles. And now, of course, the educational system is becoming influenced. Texas is somewhat immune to a degree, because it's in the Bible Belt. And, of course, Christians share values with Muslims in these matters. But just yesterday I was reading an article from the UK, and there are about 5 or 6 nurseries with children ages 3 and up that are being exposed to drag queens, that are being brought into the nursery to talk to the children about feelings and the humanness of people that dress in different ways and want to express themselves in different ways, or that don't necessarily conform to the gender that they were born with, so on and so forth. So these are the sort of things that our children are being exposed to in some parts of the world. And I wouldn't be surprised if that type of education was brought to some of our states in this country as well, sooner or later. So it's important that we address these matters from an Islamic perspective, because the confusion that our children have regarding these matters stems from a weak basis. If the foundation is weak, then their temperament, the way that they view things, and the lens through which they view all of these matters would become skewed. If their foundation is strong and their temperament has been developed from a young age and nurtured, the way they think like a Muslim. When they think with Allah's commands in sight. They think how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed something and how Allah guided us on those particular matters, because He understands his success what Allah has commanded. He understands that there are certain questions that can never be answered based on the tools and equipments and the sources of knowledge that Allah has given us alone. And this is basically one of the foundational differences between the Islamic educational system and the secular educational system, because of course within our system of learning and epistemology, sources of knowledge, we have a source of knowledge which is divine revelation. So Allah gave us tools. Allahu akhrajakum min butuni ummahatikum la ta'lamuna shay'a wa ja'ala lakum as-sam'a wal absara wal af'ida la'allakum tashkurun. Allah gave us ears, and Allah always mentions ears before eyes, which is very powerful as well, because we need to listen first. الَّذِينَ يَسْتَمِعُونَ الْقَوْلَ فَيَتَّبِعُونَ أَحْسَنَهُ. Right? So Allah mentioned sama', basar, Allah gave us eyes. But all of these are very limited tools. We use them, utilize them, and things around us. But all of the decisions that we make based on knowledge that we gather via these tools are, of course, matters that are limited to this worldly life. Right? We can never make decisions regarding the afterlife, or answer questions about the afterlife, or even guide towards the principles of success and failure in this world and also eternally in the hereafter based on these sources of knowledge alone. Why? Because that type of knowledge is concerned with the soul. Whereas what we acquire via those tools that Allah has given us is all tangible and it's all empirical. Right? Whereas these sort of questions about success and failure in the hereafter, what happens after death, is there a life that comes, it's connected with the ruh. And the ruh has only been nurtured via divine revelation. It's only through the ruh that we can recognize our Master. So it's important for us to speak about this type of knowledge from a very young age with our children. And when that temperament is developed from a young age, then questions such as why does Allah reveal this? And why does Allah say that? And how can the Prophet do this? Or how can the Prophet do that? Or it doesn't make any sense to me. Or logically, I can't understand why this and that happened. Those questions won't arise. Because a person develops intellectual humility. Right? So foundations are very important. Foundations are very important. And I can tell you, and I'm not meaning to scare us, but times are very scary. And the positions that we're in, of course, the other Imam can also testify to this. Lots of parents are concerned about their children's iman, just their basic faith. Salah is one matter, but just their basic iman, especially in very privileged areas that we live in. You'll be surprised that the level of atheism or skepticism in faith is higher in privileged societies, with privileged children. And lots of our children are struggling with these matters on a daily basis. That's why it starts from a very young age. Now, of course, this event is for 13 and up, because still we need to guide our children. But we also need to look for long-term solutions. Long-term solutions. And the only solution that I can think of that is long-term, that would help our children develop that mindset, is the maktab system. Maktab system is the daily Islamic school from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. for every Muslim child from the age of 5 till the age of 14. This maktab system is fully developed in the UK, fully developed in South Africa, and the results are great. We're speaking about safeguarding the iman of future generations. Because if our children are exposed to a certain type of education or a certain method of education for 40 hours a week, and we don't parallel that or match it, or give our children sufficient grounding in our deen, then it's obvious what the results will be. It's obvious that our children will then think differently. They won't think like a Muslim. They won't have that Islamic temperament. So the daily maktab is very important. That is why Sheikh al-Hind, rahimahullah, I think I've mentioned this in the past, Sheikh al-Hind, who was one of the first student of Darul Ulum Deoband, and he was imprisoned by the British in Malta. So Sheikh al-Hind, when he was released from prison, now imagine this, fighting the British occupation, and then being released from Malta. The first speech he delivers, everyone's eager to hear him. What's he going to say? What's he going to speak about? Maybe he's going to make some amazing political statements and share a vision for Muslims moving forward politically, so on and so forth. His first instruction was that in every single village in India there has to be a maktab. That was his instruction. In that talk he was speaking about the importance of establishing a daily Islamic school for children to go and learn their deen. Foundational basis. From a foundational perspective. What is your deen? What is deen telling us? What does submission mean? Why do we believe in Allah? Why are we servants of Allah? Why do we worship Allah? These sort of questions are important for them to understand. Right? And also there's things that we can do as parents. Read with them. Now, I was introduced to some very good texts by a friend of mine, and these texts are written by originally Imam al-Ghazali, but they've been rewritten in story form for children. So Imam Ghazali's Ihya Ulumuddin, 40 chapters. 40 chapters beginning with knowledge and Iman, right till the end, how a person needs to behave to develop themselves into a complete believer. So all of those 40 chapters have been rewritten in story form for children, with workbooks and also teachers' planning guide as well. And I think it's very advisable for us to buy these books because through illustration and in an illustrative manner we can guide our children to these very basic principles and concepts. Now even many adults can't answer these questions. If you ask them, why are you a Muslim? Why do we believe in Allah? Why do we worship Allah? What's the purpose of our existence? Many adults can't answer these questions. So that's why it's going to be educational for us as well to read these books together with our children. It develops our understanding of the deen further, and of course, it will root the deen in our children's lives as well. We ask Allah Ta'ala to give us a tawfiq wa akhiru da'wan. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Just a reminder about the Waves Halaqah, inshallah, upstairs.